Welcome to the 7 o'clock talk, and tonight we're going to talk about anxiety and how the microbiome influences. Oh, Libby?
She just wants to show him.
Yeah,
She just
she's
wants to
got
be
to be in
seen.
the way. And so, anyway, so when we talk about anxiety and we talk about this, the microbiome is one portion of the anxiety. And so it's one of those things where it can be a multifaceted thing. But if you go to the National Institutes of Health and you type in the microbiome and anxiety, and you type in short chain fatty acids and anxiety, the number of studies that comes up is actually quite impressive. And so the gut is also known as the second brain. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're calling the gut the second brain. And why are they saying that? They say that because there are more in the enteric nervous system, there are more connections back to the brain than there actually is with the spine and spinal cord. So, what they have seen is people who have microbiomes that are very narrow, and they also see that people that have microbiomes that are high in the family of Firmicutes, they are always anxious because their immune system is always active and they lack the short chain fatty acids that actually cause the stomach to heal. We see parts of the microbiome known as the keystone species. So we see the keystone species starting to diminish, and basically you see Akkermansia, you see Phacobacterium prodniti, you see Rosebaria, you see all of these things start to go below detectable limits or low, and that causes a plethora of issues, especially inside of us, because if the gut doesn't heal, so let's take this a step at a time. If you don't have the slime layer in the gut and you start to let macromolecules of food through, what happens?
All kinds of things happen.
And what's one of the first things?
Inflammation, achy joints.
And your blood sugar starts to go up faster. So you do have inflammation, you do have achy joints, you start to have sensitivities to food. And these all put your immune system on high alert. They all make your immune system overreact. And when this happens, then all of a sudden, those negative thoughts, those automatic negative thoughts, we were actually just discussing this before
You're
we
actually
came online.
hardwired to think negative before positive. You actually have to train your brain to think positive things.
Yes. And so we were discussing that. And the reason why that is that's a survival mechanism, because your brain knows that things that you don't know about could potentially be dangerous, and this is to keep you safe. And so when your immune system is amped up because you have an imbalance of Bacteroides to Firmicutes, or you have bugs in your gut that are there because they are pro-inflammatory and they do help your immune system. So you have things like Pseudomonas in there, and you have things like Klebsiella in there, and these are to help your body fight off infection and to do things. And they all produce little proteins, and they produce little parts of hormones, and they do things to help your body heal and run. And so the microbiome is about balance and diversity. And so if you take that aspect of it and you start to see where the body gets leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability, for my medical brethren out there, when we start to see that, that's one aspect. The other aspect is the the family of Firmicutes and the family of bacteria that also cause, hi Val, that also cause issues with the 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 pro-inflammatory side of the microbiome. If they are too large, then they cause inflammation in and of themselves. And those are the parts where people, they'll eat and they could get bloated. They could have all kinds of gastrointestinal issues. And for some people, they don't have any gastrointestinal issues, but they'll have problems with the microbiome. We saw two cases today where people had problems in their microbiome, and they had actually legitimate amoebal infections, and they had no gastrointestinal problems. One lady wasn't getting pregnant, and the other lady was having just all kinds of hormonal issues. But that are these are all things that affect you and you don't know. And that's the problem with the microbiome. It starts to change quickly, but if you do a little bit of an insult to the microbiome and you let off the pressure, then it'll heal back up. But if you keep assaulting it and keep assaulting it and keep assaulting it, well, over time, then that changes the microbiome to that structure, to that way, and then that's when you got to start to bring it back. And those short chain fatty acids that these things produce, those are the things that can cause problems, and that's why you have to cull these things down. And that's how functional medicine actually starts to affect things like anxiety, and that's how functional medicine affects things like autoimmune disorders, because we look at the things that are causing the inflammation. And once again, there could be other reasons, and somebody could have a serotonin deficit. Somebody, but the funny thing about that is your gut actually produces 80% of your serotonin. So once again, if the gut is off, meaning the microbiome is off, then everything is going to be off. And as I tell my patients a lot of the times, because I tend to stay heavy. My dad was 300 pounds. I run 240. But if I start to think about foods, I gain weight. That's just the way that my system is. And so I know when my diet is bad, I get inflamed and I start to gain weight. Other people, if their diet is bad, they don't gain weight, but they're, to Jess's point, their joints ache. They can't think right. They are forgetful, brain fog. Um, we already said the joints hurt, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. These things all have an aspect of the microbiome. So, case in point, we have a patient that has come to us and is, again, I don't want to reveal names, so I have to think in my head, don't say names. So this patient came to us and is anxious and has a lot of those OCD type of habits. Has to have a routine, has to be calmed down, has to have all of these ducks in a row. And as we have finally gotten back the microbiome on her, it's very what we call narrow. And so the foods that this person eats are very routine. And they're actually not bad though.
Yeah, they're high quality, organic, non GMO. They like clean them. She actually has a really good diet, but it's not diverse.
Yeah. And so your body depends, and I've said this over and over and over again with my patient. Your body, and I've said it over and over and over again on here. Your body depends on polyphenols and bioflavonoids. That's what actually runs the immune system. Those are the things that tell the bouncer, we'll say the immune system is the bouncer, They're the things that tell the immune system, hey, get up, go take care of the problem over there. Now that you're done, go sit back down. And I've also said this, if you look at America in total as a population, we are, depending on what you read, 3 to 5% of the world's population. And we love to pride ourselves on our medical technology and everything. But you can go look at the documented cases of death from the pandemic, and America was 30% of the deaths. So we, our food system does not allow for us to have a very diverse microbiome. And you can kind of look at things that are happening now, because they're saying that the microbiome that we have now, the bugs in the gut, they are changing, and you can start to look at the amount of issues that we have, the psych problems that we have. And if you don't believe me, and that's your choice, but go to the National Institutes of Health and start to look up the microbiome and anxiety, microbiome and suicide, microbiome and just about any psychological disease that there is. And you will see reams and reams and reams of studies on this stuff. And it's not to be taken lightly. Other countries don't have the problems that we have. And unfortunately, a lot of that's due to the way that we eat. And that's what affects the microbiome. That's what affects the short chain fatty acids. That's what affects your hormones, or our hormones. And it is absolutely appalling almost. So, kind of a bummer talk tonight. I'm sorry about that. But it just is. It is what it is. And I encourage you all to go out and do that research. Don't search Google. Go to Google Scholar. Go to the National Institutes of Health. Go to PubMed and do a search for legitimate research. Not not just not just bro science, or just whatever research that's crap. Look at those things and start to educate yourself. If you have any questions about this stuff, this is what we do every day. We just started a whole bunch of functional medicine patients, and this is what we do. We start with looking at hormones, we start with looking at stress, we start with looking at the microbiome, and we look at the organic acids. And that way we can dig into the problems that you have and start to help you figure a way out of them. Thank you very much, and you have a wonderful evening.